It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh man, the days just keep getting better and better. Welcome into the Voice of Reason on a hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday. We are in the middle of the week, which I'm already mind-boggled by that fact, and the fact that we're already seeing the middle of the week. It's already hump day. It's already the day before the pre-Friday celebration, which means we are in a good spot right now. Welcome in, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's an honor to have you along this morning. Advancing conservatism on a daily basis so strongly that we're semi-comfortable with our gender identification. Yeah, that's what we do. So there's a lot of stories, of course, coming out today. We got a big show for you. There is a lot to cover, both on the national front, on the local front, on the statewide front. We have some great guests today. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell will be with us at 7:30, as he is every Wednesday. And in the 8 o'clock hour, Greg Orman, independent candidate for the governor's race, will be joining us on the show to talk to us about, of course, the signature petition that he submitted to be on the ballot, on his platform, on what he's running on, and whatever else may come up at that time. Until then, it is open lines to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but if you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to do so. But as you know, everybody in the news, panicky, freaking out, all the media, all giddy, all excited of the fact that Paul Manafort is guilty. That's the story. That's the big news, of course, that Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort now guilty. And Michael Cohen, of course, of the new Republic.com, Donald Trump's longtime personal attorney, told a federal court in Manhattan on Tuesday that he broke the law at Trump's behest during a 2016 campaign, paying off two women with whom the president had extramarital affairs with so they wouldn't damage his electoral prospects. Now, that's the news. And he said he did it on behalf of the candidate at the time, on behalf of Donald Trump at that time, which is campaign finance rules. Now, I don't know the details of how they did it. I mean, whether it was out of his own personal pocket, whether it was out of the actual campaign funds. If it was out of the own personal pocket, I don't know if that's breaking the law. I'm not a legal expert on this, and I don't really know, nor, honestly, do I really care. Does this make a difference in any way, shape, or form? Now, they say that he's at an arm's reach of having legal issues, and now everybody's panicky about an impeachment process that's going to start. Let me tell you something. Republicans right now, with a Republican-led majority, are not going to impeach President Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen. Which is why the Democrats are all worked up, all ready to go for this big blue wave. They're ready to try and start pushing for impeachment. They're ready to start working on that platform to say we will impeach President Trump if we become a majority in the House of Representatives. That's what their goal is. They've openly said it before. They continue to openly say it, and now they're at arm's reach. You know what I think is going to happen here? Honestly, I think that it's going to be at arm's reach here. They can taste it. They can smell it. It's so close. They're going to just try. If they could just get a slim majority in the House, they'd be able to start the process. They'd be able to do what they say they want to do, and then they'd be able to win by impeaching President Donald Trump. They're so close to doing it. They're at arm's reach. They can taste it. And then it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. And they blow their lid. They blow their gasket because they are so angry. They're so upset. It's so close. It's like you training for a sporting event to run a marathon. And you're like, I'm not only going to do this, but I'm going to win this thing. It's going to be fantastic. And you come down to right to the buzzer, right towards the very end of it, and there's someone else right beside you, and they jump forward and they go head first through the ribbon, and they end up winning, and you're devastated because you put so much time and effort into it. Yeah, it was a good run, but you know what? You didn't accomplish what you set out to do, and they beat you. Or it's even worse when you get really, you train, and then as soon as they say go at the very beginning, you fall into a hole and you twist your ankle, and then you're done. And you're like, man, that was a waste. This is what's going to happen to the Democrats in the midterm election, because it's not going to happen. The blue wave is not going to happen. We've been saying this, and I've been guaranteeing it. It's not going to happen. I shouldn't guarantee anything in an election, but I just don't see it. I don't see the blue wave mentality. But is this going to damage President Trump? And do you, as a voter, honestly care of the fact that they paid off 2 women that he had extramarital affairs with? Now, back in my day, I used to remember the stories about, Bill Clinton having extramarital affairs just about every week while he was in the presidency. And then we found out more about him as time went on, and he had an affair in the White House, and he had numerous affairs potentially while he was president, and he had affairs before he was president. He had affairs all the time. It just happened all the time. Just about every president before, except for a few of them, you hear about their mistress. Back in the day, it was called a mistress. Nowadays, it's like the worst thing in the world, which I'm not saying it's good in any way, shape, or form. Don't get me wrong. But before, they were just like, this guy has a couple mistresses. JFK had numerous different mistresses. You just kind of acknowledged it, and that was the thing, and you just kind of judged them based on their moral character at the time, and then you went on about your business. That's the point that we're at. But now Donald Trump, Donald Trump's not allowed to do that. Donald Trump is not allowed to have those mistresses. Donald Trump is not allowed to have those types of shenanigans going on. And it's to the point to where, the progressives and the Democrats, they're all about the free love. They're all about not having any moral standards. They're not about having, any limitations. They can just do whatever they want to. Donald Trump, we can't be doing said things like that. How dare you? You're a billionaire that has lots of money where women swoon to you all the time. You can't be doing that because you're a terrible, horrible racist. And that's why we need to get rid of him. So they say he's at arm's reach of being in legal trouble because now that just encourages them to dig a little bit deeper. I don't know what's going to come of this. I don't really care. We have issues to talk about, which is what I like to do on the show. But if you want to talk about this, do you think it's going to have any effect on President Trump? Do you think it's going to have any effect on the midterms? Do you think it's going to affect him with a potential impeachment in the House? It would be really interesting to discuss that if you'd like to. 316-721-8255. I, for one, like to spend the majority of my time talking about issue-related things because that's what I like to judge based on going into an election. I don't know about you, but when I go to the voting booth, I like to look at a candidate and say, hey, they believe X, Y, and Z, which is why I like to support them, not, oh, hey, they support a candidate that may have had extramarital affairs. Can you believe it? One of those guys. I just don't do that. I don't go into the drama side of this. It's not the soap opera style politics that actually intrigue me. So on the issue based problems, according to thehill.com, cost of living in the United States is rising at its fastest rate in 10 years, according to new data from the Labor Department. The data released just a week or so ago revealed the consumer prices increased by 2.9% in July from the year before, meaning Americans may be earning less than they did at this time last year. Now, this goes into play with the tax breaks that we got from President Donald Trump. Yeah, did we get a little bit more money? That's great, but inflation's going up. Why is inflation going up? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because of the cost of living or because of the government spending too much damn money. Now, yesterday we had a fun little conversation about the mini, the miniature or the mini mansions that we're talking about building here in Wichita, which I found kind of intriguing. And from what it sounds like, I myself, along with the majority of the listeners that at least called in, we're not a big fan of the mini mansions where it's a little 300 to 500 square foot home. It's on the lot. You can't really expand it. They're trying to cram them all together in tight quarters, that sort of thing. And they're only going to be worth about $75,000 to $100,000. And it's a good idea when you talk about the cost of living because it's cheaper, obviously. But at the same time, as we talked about yesterday, the value of the home is pretty much capped. But as we're talking about the increased cost of living, what are we doing in the state of Kansas? We're struggling to find at least housing that's affordable. You can't buy groceries without a crazy, insane rate of sales tax on your food. We refuse to actually get rid of that because, well, we need it for the government. It's all about the government. Now, with cost of living rising at the fastest rate in 10 years, that should be a little bit concerning. And there's always something against us. We did very well as we repealed the tax breaks from President Donald Trump, and we ended up getting the tax break. We repealed the tax increases that we've seen over and over, and we got some more money in our pocket. People invested. We're really happy. Things are doing really well. The GDP started growing. But when it grew, then the nice little bankers at the federal level, the nice little individuals at the federal level sitting in their cushy seats in the office are sitting there saying, oh, look, the economy's doing pretty well now. Things are coming back up. Might as well give it a nice little inflation rate. You inflate the cost of everything. Everything's more expensive. And then we think that we're doing well when we end up seeing a little bit more tougher time because we still can't afford to buy any goods. We can't afford to go to the grocery store. We can't afford to buy a new home. We can't afford to live still, thanks to the cost of living increases. And that's a problem. Now, according to ZeroHedge.com, U.S. spending on interest, its all-time highest budget deficit soared to $684 billion. I'm starting to see a trend, aren't you? It's starting to remind me of 2012 all over again with Governor Sam Brownback, right? We do tax breaks. Tax breaks are really nice. We have more money in our pockets. We don't cut the spending to offset that. Now, the state level obviously is a little bit different than the federal budget. We have to have a balanced budget at the statewide level. We don't, but we're supposed to. Going into the 2019 session, we have a 2-year budget cycle to look at again, and we're still red within 2 years. Going bankrupt or going into the deficit again in 2 years as a state. The federal level, I mean, it soars $684 billion in debt. Who really cares? We'll just print some more money. And that's what's happening. It's the other side of the coin that we never address. U.S. spending on interest, it's all-time high. We're spending more money on interest of our debts than we actually are paying on our debts. It's like a credit card at a 25% interest rate, and no matter how much you pay on it on your monthly basis, then all you're doing is paying into the interest, and you're never paying off the balance. You feel really good when you pay off a big chunk in the month, and you're like, hey, I got some room on the card now. You use it a couple more times for gas or something, the interest hits again, and bam, you're above your limit every single time. Shocking, right? It's kind of the same scenario that we've had as the government, except for we don't even pay on the actual balance. We just pay on the interest. We just pay right on the interest and be like, yeah, we'll deal with it later. The economy will tick back up. We'll be all right. So we feel like we're doing better as we get more money in our pocket. Then we have the government spending more money, getting further into debt, and then lowering the value of the dollar, which, by the way, creates inflation. So then it's more expensive for us to actually purchase goods. All these progressives, hey, Bernie Sanders, hey, Alexandria, hey, all you socialists, hey, all you, whatever you want to call yourselves, democratic socialists, all you left-wing on the side of the aisle, more spending on social programs, more spending on government programs is the dumbest thing we can do. Can I just say that, please? That is the dumbest thing we can do. We already have tons of debt. We cannot afford the bills that we already have at the federal level, and you want to add a bunch more to it, and then you want to raise taxes to try and offset that. We already can't afford our bills, even with the taxes that we currently have. And if you remember, every single month we come on here and we read the story about how right now we have the record monthly collections of tax receipts, meaning that we're paying more taxes between income tax and sales tax and whatever other federal taxes that we have. We're paying more into the government every single month than we've ever done before, and yet we still rack up more debt month by month. Shocking concept, right? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts and calls this morning. Line number 1, good morning. What's your name?
This is Pete.
Good morning, Pete. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. You brought up those McMansions earlier.
Yes.
Over on the east side of Wichita. And, I understand the need for the McMansions. I get it. We do need affordable housing. However, why are they grouping them all in one little area and trashing the values of people who work to buy nicer housing? And what about all these abandoned lots that the city of Wichita owns within the city limits? Why aren't they putting these McMansions on those?
Well, and that's the question. That's what we brought up yesterday. Why, instead of are we expanding, putting these on? Which to me, these houses remind me of like a brand new car you drive off the lot, and that's about the most of the value the car's ever going to receive. And then you're going to see the devaluing of the car. With these mini mansions, you're not going to be able to add on to them. You're not going to be able to do a whole lot to them. So the value of the home is kind of at its peak as you buy it, which means if you ever try to sell it later or rent it later or whatever, that you're not going to get out of it what you purchased for it in the first place. So the value of it's going to go down. It's right near areas where it's going to be $300,000-$400,000 homes in the first place. So those values potentially could be affected. And then you're right. We have eminent domain going on as the city's taking over private property with these houses that may not be in structurally good positions, or may not, or may be structurally sound, but they haven't really invested the money to clean them up a little bit. Let's revitalize those homes. Let those be the starter homes. Let those be the cheap, low-income homes for individuals that are starting off, that need fixer-uppers, that may not have a whole lot of income. Let those be it. Try and clean up some of the other parts of the town instead of trying to create new areas that potentially could go downhill.
Well, I'll tell you why they don't fix up those homes. And if you've driven by those neighborhoods, they're like a demilitarized zone.
Sure. Well, that's true.
And nobody wants to live there. So the city of Wichita better start looking within and clean up its act within to make their neighborhoods as nice as those neighborhoods that they want to confiscate on the fringes of town. There's a reason why people build $300,000 houses on the fringes of town, not in the middle of town. And that's the hard question the city of Wichita won't look at.
Well, that is very true. And as we talk about the cost of living in the country, I mean, with inflation going up and up and up, whether it's because unions are trying to advocate for more benefits and salary increases for union workers, whether it's for the inflation because of government spending and our debt continuously going up and us printing more money, whatever the causes may be when it comes to the cost of living, it's going up. I understand why we need a little bit different varieties of housing and price ranges, which I get. I mean, I got here and I was trying to find a home. But I said yesterday, my home's worth about $80,000. I can't afford a $200,000 home. I get that, but it was very difficult to find a home within my price range. Luckily, I found one that's a little bit older. It's in a decent neighborhood. It's a little bit of a fixer-upper, but we don't have a lot of those in the community. Why don't we start finding some of those and making some of those?
Well, again, when my wife and I were looking to relocate down here, we chose not to relocate in Wichita because we couldn't find anything we wanted to buy in our price range that was in a neighborhood we felt safe in.
Sure. Well, that's very true. Pete, I appreciate it very much. I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and I think it ties right in with the cost of living issue because we have the double side of the coin, the double-edged sword that we're trying to address. It's the same issue as the rest of the nation, and I've mentioned this before, was looking at Kansas on what our decision was going to be with the conservative experiment, the Brownback experiment, all these other issues that we addressed here, to where we cut our taxes, we didn't cut our spending, then we ran into the issues that we did. The federal government needs to take a look at out of our playbook, realize the mistakes, and then begin to address it. But are they going to? Of course not. Because, again, 60+% of the budget are social programs. You start talking about cutting social programs, and all hell will break loose with the Democrats to where they will lose their minds. 25 minutes past the hour. We got a lot to get to today. It's going to be fun. I do want to touch on the marijuana issue in Oklahoma. We were going to talk about that yesterday. Didn't get a chance to do so. Also, I have some number crunching that we're going to look at as we go into the election cycle for the governor's race, what the numbers may look like with the three-way race. The three is a crowd kind of mentality from the Democrats, starting to realize the panic setting in of what Greg Orman may do to the Democrats in this race. Got to take a break. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
All right, bottom of the hour news coming up in just a minute. When we come back, we'll shift gears a little bit. It is open lines to you as well. We're going to have some fun today. It is a Wednesday. I know that you're feeling the stress a little bit of the week. Don't worry. Can you believe holiday season is right around the corner? I know you don't want to hear that yet, but the holidays, they're coming up soon before you know it. Also, I mean, the biggest holiday, of course, of the year, Election Day, that's just a few months away, less than 90 days away. Yeah, think about that one for a minute. This is The Voice of Reason on a Wednesday. Stay here.
your home for entertaining radio.
This is your fault, too, man. I keep missing Rush Limbaugh's morning update every morning because I'm listening to your show.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into the Voice of Reason, your one and only local conservative talk show in the entire area. Welcome in. It's great to have you along today. 316-721-TALK, 316-721-8255. If you want to jump into the program, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, will be in just about an hour from now via telephone, joining us and talking to us about some of the county issues. I do maybe want to bring up the idea of the mini mansions to him and get his take on it as well. I know they've kind of looked at it. The city's kind of looking at it. We talked a little bit about it with Brian Fry yesterday. We'll get some more details from his end next week when he's back in the studio. Have you realized, and with a lot of these issues that's happening federally, that's happening statewide across the country, numerous different issues from the economy to social issues to whatever. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I think, and I would have to lump it up to the whole, cell phones and immediate reaction and waiting for a response and having being very impatient in today's society. If you remember way back when, we used to say patience is a virtue. And we try and teach a little patience. You got to wait a little bit. It's very difficult. You're in a new relationship. You text somebody. You start giggling, and then they text you back, and then, oh, it's so great. Or you get into an argument, and you try and text them, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and they don't text back, and they don't text back. And it could be totally just because they're busy, and they're, shopping, or they're doing something. But you're waiting, and you're waiting. And you're waiting, and then you get more angry because you're waiting. That's happened before. I'm not going to say, it's happened before. When my wife and I were dating, we'd have times where she'd be totally busy. She'd be, working, and I wouldn't be working that day, and I'd be trying to text her or call her. Wouldn't answer. And then you get a little nervous, and you're like, all right, what's going on? And then you start getting a little panicky feeling. When you're in those new relationships, that happens. And in today's times, we want that immediate response. We want that instant gratification. And that's what we're seeing. I don't know if you saw the news or not, but of course, Monday, just a couple of days ago, North Carolina, one of the universities came out trying to topple again one of the old, one of the Confederate statues. Still on the whole Confederate statue thing. And then, of course, they had all the signs about white privilege, and they want it down right now, and they caused the issue. And then there was a bunch of issues with the law enforcement that were there and anti-protesters, and it just caused into a big chaos, trying to remove one of the old Confederate statues. Then you see with the Democrats right now, campaigning, saying we need to impeach President Trump. We need to get rid of President Trump. We need to get rid of him right now. What about this response? What would happen if he gets out? Well, then it would be Vice President Mike Pence that would take over. They hate him just as much because he is a pro-conservative. He is a pro-life individual. He is a staunch individual that's not going to be taken advantage of. He's a very stern individual, and that's just the way he is. So do you really want to get rid of Donald Trump? Because Mike Pence, according to you, is not going to be much better, so you're going to start going after him? Have to start going down the line, right? They want the instant gratification. And then we see something like of Kansas that says we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. Oh, we didn't see enough money go into education. We need more money. Got to sue for more money. Supreme Court's got to tell us we got to get more money. Better find some more money. Instead of saying, wait a second, let's slow down. Let's really observe this. Let's figure out the best way to apply the money. And we've gone about it over and over and over again. We're not going to go over that again today. But we need that instant gratification. The progressives, they're very testy. They're very testy. They want all of it or nothing. They are the children that really do. I want my candy and I want it right now. I want my dessert and I want it right now. No, you can't have your dessert yet. Well, then you're racist. What? It's really what position we're in right now, is it not? That's what they love to do. We want it right now because we're entitled, we're grumpy, and we want this right now. We want higher taxes. We want social spending. We want socialism. We just want things right now. Then you see something like Oklahoma, and I wanted to bring this up yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to do so, but I wanted to this Oklahoma marijuana issue. Again, the instant gratification. We want it right now. We want to do it. What about the unintended consequences? To hell with those. Colorado, let's just legalize it. Let's legalize it medically. Let's legalize it recreationally. Let's just legalize it. Let's get it done. Okay, what's going to happen to the state? Well, who cares? You can grow your plants. If you have medical sides, you can grow your plants. If you have recreational sides, you can grow your plants. If you don't, it's just whatever. You can do whatever you want to. But law enforcement, you need to start trying to actually be law enforcement and take care of, regulate how this is going to be done, which, of course, now they have no idea how to do so. Oklahoma is going to be kind of the same way. If you remember, just a few weeks ago, they passed the medical side, quote unquote, of marijuana. And I don't want to go down the benefits or the negatives or positives of legalizing or not legalizing marijuana. I want to talk about the actual legal procedures of how this was actually done in Oklahoma. They passed it under the mentality of medical marijuana, but then they have it open to where, according to the legislation they voted on and they passed, was that anybody, regardless of whether you have a medical issue or not, can actually get the license to grow the marijuana plant. Now tell me that if you're growing the marijuana plant, even if you don't have a medical card for it, that you're not going to be enjoying the product of what you're growing. Okay, so that's number one on the loophole. Then you have law enforcement trying to enforce this. How do we enforce someone that has a license to be able to grow the marijuana without a medical purpose, and you're selling it? Who are you selling it to? How are you going to sell it? And let's begin to regulate that. Then that's a whole other issue. This whole idea of the legalization creates more laws and more enforcement than we actually had in the first place. But now they're trying to legalize it recreationally. And the way that they've been trying to do it is put it on the ballot based on a petition. Get enough petition signatures to be able to get the marijuana on the ballot. You vote for it on the ballot, and then you can legalize it recreationally. And they came up 20,000 signatures short. According to Cake TV, Oklahoma officials say that in an effort to place recreational marijuana on the general election ballot in November, that's fallen more than 20,000 signatures short. Secretary of State James Williamson announced Monday that a count by his office determined the support of the initiative gathered nearly 103,000 signatures for question number 797. The group needed more than 123,000 signatures to qualify for the proposed constitutional amendment to a public vote. Supporters wanted to amend the Constitution to allow adults over the age of 21 to legally use marijuana. Now, the response from the Secretary of State is like, well, we're going to take it to court and see if it's enough and if we can try and slip this through. My question is, number one, I find it kind of funny that we could pass it medicinally with very broad open spectrum legally of what you can do and how you can grow it and what kind of license you can get, but yet we can't get the petition signed to be able to get it recreationally onto the ballot. Are we drawing that arbitrary line there saying, yeah, we want it medicinally with very open gray areas of laws on how we can actually do this, but we're not going to go to the extent of openly saying we want recreational marijuana when you pretty much have recreational marijuana right now? Give it some time and you'll be able to get it. This instant gratification thing, to hell with the laws, to hell with what we're doing, to hell with what the consequences may be, the unintended consequences, to heck with all of that. Let's just legalize it. And let's just legalize it right now because we want it right now. Like the protesters trying to tear down the Confederate statues. We want it down right now. We can't stand it being up there. It's a sign of white supremacy, which is the most absurd thing that I've heard. But we want it down. We want it down right now, and there's nothing that anybody can tell us otherwise. So they try and fight. They cause a riot. They go after the law enforcement and the police that are trying to stop them. And it just turns into chaos. Colorado did the same thing with their marijuana. Oklahoma's doing it with their marijuana now. Everybody's so giddy about doing it right now because they want to be the first. They want to be the fastest. They want to be the best. So let's just, to hell with thinking it through. Look, it's going to happen. If you already legalize it medicinally, it's going to happen recreational. Whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, it doesn't really matter. It's going to happen. But the fact that they're trying to take it to court, they're trying to ram it through, they're upset that they lost their 20,000 signatures, or their 20,000 signatures that they missed out on this petition to get it on the ballot, just shows that they're not ready yet. But again, I just find it ironic that a very conservative state like Oklahoma wanted to pass it for for medicinal use, can't get enough signatures on the ballot for recreational use. If it went to the ballot, then do you think it's actually going to pass? Probably not, if they couldn't get enough signatures for it, because that crowd, those individuals that want that are very excited about it, are very energized about it, are very informed about the issue, and they want to do a change. They want to have that change. So you would think that they would have been able to get enough signatures just like that. They weren't able to. So what does that mean? It means hang tight for a year or two, and then you'll be able to get it again. Because watch how the laws fail. Watch how law enforcement has no idea how to enforce the actual laws for marijuana. Watch how no one knows whether the laws are okay or not. I mean, if you watch, there's actually a lawsuit right now. According to newsok.com, the attorney behind a challenge to medical marijuana regulation says the legal effort has shown success despite their loss in court. They have numerous individuals applying for the license already. They were denied, or they're going through the process. They've taken it to court because still they're trying to figure out how this law is going to work. They tried to tighten it up a little bit, meaning the legislature. Tried to tighten it up a little bit on the regulations of this, on how they're going to be able to grow, who can grow, how much you can grow, and where you can sell it. And the judge came back and said, yeah, right now, sorry, the law is very open to interpretation. You can kind of do whatever you want to. So they're trying to figure out the parameters of this law, which means that there's a lot of gray area before we even try and go after recreational marijuana. And again, I don't want to go down the road whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't really care right now. But the legalities of this are about the worst that I've ever seen. Now, I do have to say that there's one benefit of the courts here, and maybe our Kansas Supreme Court should take another look at it from their standpoint on what their duties actually are. There's a lot here, according to the judge, before going through the 21 rule one by one. This is uncharted territory for the state of Oklahoma. The judge also appointed his overall remarks in the bigger picture that the legislative process should work out the issues with the new law. Wait a second. We actually have judges, and we actually have the courts saying, you know what? There's a lot of gray area here. There's a lot of points when it comes to this. There's a lot of shenanigans that could potentially happen with this law. The legislature kind of needs to do their job and figure out what the law is going to look like. Wait a second. I did not realize that the courts actually kept within their bounds and didn't try to interpret law and make up law if they didn't know, but they just passed it back on to the legislature and said, do your job. Maybe our Kansas Supreme Court should actually follow suit. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Your thoughts with Oklahoma, with their marijuana issue. It is supposed to be technically medical marijuana right now. It's really not medical marijuana right now. They're upset they didn't get their recreational marijuana, and I just find that ironic. I mean, if we understood the law down there, then you really could just abuse that law and just do however you wanted to, and then let the laws crumble themselves before you just say, yeah, we just it's open now. The Pandora's box is open. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's time to just legalize this recreationally and let everybody do whatever they want to. It's going to get to that because the laws are so badly written as of right now. Let's go to the phones at line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Nick.
Nick, what's going on, sir?
Oh, not much. Hey, last night I was watching a special on the 20s and 30s and prohibition and things like that. And I don't really know how to take this conversation, but, you know, GW Pharmaceuticals just got approved to sell a Epidiolex medication for anti-seizure medication.
Yes.
The problem with that is that medication is going to cost a family or taxpayers or an insurance company $32,000 a year for somebody to have that. So when we talk about giving people a fish versus teaching them how to fish, you know, whether this plant has industrial economic opportunities, non-FDA evaluated therapeutic uses, or just something that people want to use in their basement or whatever, I just find it disheartening that we are willing to sacrifice our conservative Republican principles and say that this is something that should be criminalized when we have other things that should be on law enforcement's plate that's a little more pressing and violent in nature.
Right, which again is why what I mentioned with this Oklahoma issue is that right now, I mean, with the way the law is written, instead of the Oklahomans, the Okies, getting upset about the fact that they didn't get their 20,000 additional signatures for the ballot to get recreational marijuana, just to let the medical side ride as is right now, it's already a very vague law. It's already causing a lot of issues and already some lawsuits. Let it crumble before our eyes because they didn't write it very well, and then it'll pass. They'll open up the doors a lot wider for recreational or medical use or for whatever they want to a little more freely because this is a badly written law.
Is there and we kind of go back and forth here, but when we compare, different things, like, I don't know the medical value of certain types of music that we play or the medical value of other substances that we're allowed to use. Now, Oklahoma and other states like Florida have done the medical route because they see that they have support from the older generations for that. And so they have to play the political game, I guess you'd say. The only problem is 2 years out into some of these medical programs, and children and other people don't even have access to the plant because of bureaucracy and red tape and everything like that. So that's why I've been, standing on the principle of the thing of limited government, individual liberty, and all that stuff that we preach on day after day after day, except for this one thing, which, is getting tiresome nonetheless. But anyway, we still talk about it.
Right. Well, and here's the question for you as well. I mean, with the way, again, this specific law in Oklahoma that where they've tried to legalize this with how much red tape or lack thereof that's there, where they're putting the pressure on law enforcement to enforce something they're not quite sure how to enforce. Now we have legal suits that are already being created in Oklahoma on who can get the license to grow and how they're going to be able to sell it and all this other stuff. To me, I don't see that as being smaller government. I see that as them trying to keep a lid on something that you're not going to be able to keep the lid on once you go down that process, and it's only causing more issues. Again, I'm with you when you actually want to legalize something, and we literally actually legalize that without a whole lot of regulation on there. But every state that's tried this so far, Oklahoma, in Colorado and California and the state of Washington and every other state that's tried to do this, we've created more bureaucracy at the state level to regulate something like this, as opposed to just saying, here you go, be free, have fun, go do your thing. It hasn't worked that way, and no one's actually done that yet.
That's because once government gets control over something, it
Right.
has a hard time of letting it go.
Exactly. And that's why I'm almost to the point to where it's almost not worth it. And I'm with you on the individual liberty side of it, to not have the government to regulate it and allow you to do what you need to do with it and whatever. In the case, I don't really care. But that hasn't happened so far, and it's almost cheaper for us as a state to regulate it and enforce it as an illegal substance than it is to try and regulate it by legalizing it with certain parameters and then trying to figure out why people are trying to break that law.
That's an interesting concept, Andy. I've never thought about it that way before. But here's the thing. Come November, we have a choice to make. And I think an issue like this is something that's going to be up there in the numbers priority list for people as a bipartisan issue, and something that the Republican Party should grab a hold of, because it does go along with our principles. Otherwise, we're going to hand off it to people who don't care about anything.
Sure. Well, that is very true. I agree with that, Nick, very much so. Appreciate the call. Always appreciate the dialogue and the conversation. We got to take a break here, wrapping up hour number one. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. And again, it's not right now, at least with this discussion about the pros and cons about whether we should or should not legalize. But this law specifically in Oklahoma is badly written. And now we're trying something new again with a petition that didn't work out. They're trying to ram it through the courts and see if they can still get it on the ballot. And I just don't think it's going to be beneficial right now. Let the law crumble on its own, but we got to be patient. We cannot have the instant gratification. To hell with the unintended consequences that may come up. We need to think things through once in a while, which is why so many states are actually being smart about this and not going down that road as of yet until we strategize the best way to actually make it happen. Got to take a break. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, where's Andy at today? Oh, there he is, meeting that dead horse. Yeah, that's right. I know we like to talk about that issue every once in a while. That's all right. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one. When we come back, hour number two, we got a lot more to get to, plus our great guests I'm looking forward to chatting with today. Also, we gave a pair of tickets away yesterday. We'll do it again today, but we do have a pair of tickets to the truck and tractor pulls at the Kansas State Fair. Stay tuned in for that. More information to come. I don't know. I'm guessing in the next hour or two. Something like that. We'll play the sounder. We'll let you know. We'll get you a pair of truck and tractor pull tickets to the Kansas State Fair coming up in September. It's going to be a heck of a fun time. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay right here.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. On the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well. KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. I got to say, it is kind of fun doing a talk show when you're riding the high on Dayquil. It's fantastic. Sometimes your mind wanders as you're going about and talking about certain issues, and you think about things that you normally don't. It's kind of fun. You should try it sometime. Or not. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I think I'm slowly getting on the back end of this. I don't know yet. I think I'm like right in the heat of it. Yesterday was kind of a blur. Yesterday's show, I hope, was relatively decent, and throughout the day, I was just like in a fog as you're going about your day. You've always had those days once in a while, right? Today, I don't know. I'm still on the same kind of stuff, but it's at least riding the high to be able to speak during the show today. So that's at least good news. That's good news. It's a fun time. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, going to be joining us as we always do for a Wednesday. Also at 8 o'clock, Greg Orman, independent candidate for the governor's race, will be joining us. As you know, he's been in the news a lot lately, which, I mean, no publicity is bad publicity when it comes to election time. The more you're able to stay in the news, the more people pay attention to you, so I'm sure he's enjoying this. But the Democrats panicky about him being on the ballot. They're trying to challenge that. We have the story from Kansas City Star. Kansas race for governor poses a complex math problem with crowded ballot. There are 3 people on the ballot. This is not a complicated math problem here. This is 3. I know 3 is a crowd. I know that 3 is a crowd. Trying to answer 3 people at the same time or 2 people at the same time for you 3, it doesn't work very well. I know it's a complicated crowd, but bear with us. We have a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent. I know. That's really complicated. Sometimes we can't count higher than 2, but there is a third individual here, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I'm excited about having a third-party candidate on the ballot for the fact that with his history, with what he's kind of stood for before, with what parties kind of embraced him in the past, that this is going to kind of divide votes from the left side of the aisle, the Democrats and the independent. We've talked about this before, but the Democrats are starting to realize this. They're all kinds of panicky because now they don't know what to do. They have a more popular independent candidate than they do a Democrat candidate. Who knows Laura Kelly? Who knows anything about her voting record? Who knows anything about her personality other than her tweets that she did on the night that Chris Kobach ended up winning and said that he's nothing more than a brownbacker, which we totally called because that's what the campaign tactic is going to be this entire election. I'm curious to see how much campaign tactics from the progressives, from the Democrats, that they're going to sink in on attacking Greg Orman. He's not a real Democrat, not part of the Democratic Party. It's not whatever. I'm wondering how much attention that they're going to try and give Greg Orman in their campaign tactics for the Democrat side. I mean, Chris Kobach honestly doesn't really have to because he's just saying, both candidates are progressive and I'm the conservative, and he's going to campaign that way. He's going to campaign on a pro-conservative message, and he's got a very easy job here. He really does. The other side of the aisle is going to be a little more difficult. Laura Kelly is going to have to run on the I'm the real Democrat and you need to embrace real Democrats. I don't know how well it's going to work because there are more unaffiliated voters than there are actual Democrats in the state of Kansas, but that's what they're going to try, or at least the only way that I can see them actually attempting to try. So I ran some personal numbers. Now, these are very vague numbers. These are not locked in numbers, but these are the numbers as I see them for Sedgwick County. Just for Sedgwick County and Sedgwick County alone. But as we talk about a complicated crowd, and as the Democrats are trying to remove Greg Orman off the ballot, which we'll talk about in just a second, the reasoning is because they can't win Sedgwick County without one of either the independent or the Democrat bowing out of the race. And here's why. According to the registration numbers, which are on the Secretary of State's website for Sedgwick County, there are 114,000 Republicans registered. There are 70,000 Democrats registered, and there are 108,000 unaffiliated registered voters, which means that there are just about as many unaffiliated as there are Republicans, and the Democrats are just trying to, catch up behind. In Sedgwick County alone. The last election for the congressional seat, for the 2016 4th District congressional seat, when Mike Pompeo was in there, and he ended up winning, he won with 166,900 votes. The Democrat, Dan Giroux, won with 81,000 votes, and Gordon Backin, the Libertarian, came in third with 7,000 votes. Now, with 166,000 votes that Mike Pompeo received, that's a lot more than how many registered Republicans are actually in the county. Now, I know that there's outside of the county as well because there's more counties than just in the 4th Congressional District, but let's just assume right now that the majority of those came from Sedgwick County. That would mean that unaffiliated voters, about half of them, just about 40 to 45, 48% went with the Republican candidate. If these numbers were just from Sedgwick County, Democrats got about 10% of the unaffiliated vote. Libertarian got about 7% of the unaffiliated vote based on the outcome turnout numbers and based on how many numbers that the actual candidate received from Sedgwick County. Which means there's about 30% left of the unaffiliated that just didn't turn out or actually didn't do anything. So, breaking down the numbers of unaffiliated here, just because you're unaffiliated doesn't mean that you're not conservative, doesn't mean that you're not liberal, doesn't mean that you're not just middle of the road or whatever you may be. So, straight up numbers split between the two, just by registered voters in the county, Kobach would win 114,000, 108,000 for Orman, and 70,000 for Kelly if all unaffiliateds went to Greg Orman. Kobach would win. Let's take scenario number 2 to where Orman, according to the latest poll from the Topeka Capital Journal, ends up winning even more votes than Laura Kelly in the governor's race, which could be a potential to where, let's say, all the unaffiliated go towards Greg Orman. The 30% that was actually left over. Kobach would still win. Let's go even to the point of saying that 10% of the Republicans don't like Chris Kobach, end up voting for Greg Orman because they just really, really, really don't like Chris Kobach for whatever reason. Chris Kobach still wins by close to 60,000 votes. Let's look at scenario number 3. If Laura Kelly ends up getting it, Greg Orman got 0, nada of the unaffiliated. Everybody embraced the Democrat that was unaffiliated and Democrat. They all went there, and she received 10% of the vote from the Republicans because, well, the Republicans, some of those just really, really don't like Chris Kobach for whatever reason. They go towards Laura Kelly. He still wins by 15,000 votes. So how... this is a prime example of why the Democrats are panicky. Because right now the numbers just don't add up based on the unaffiliated and where they've historically gone towards either Republicans, towards the third parties, towards the Libertarians, towards whatever. Then you, of course, have the Libertarians that will get 1 or 2% of the vote. You have maybe another independent candidate that will get maybe 1% of the vote-ish. That'll just tear apart a little bit more. The Libertarians, I would assume, would maybe pull away from the Republicans a little bit. The other independent maybe pull from the Democrat a little bit. I don't really know. I don't know their platform. But right now, statistically, here, at least in Sedgwick County, really, with 3 people on the ballot, Kobach wins each and every time, no matter what the scenario actually looks like. So now you see the reason why Democrats are coming out and they're trying to challenge the petition full of signatures from Greg Orman. And I'm going to bring this up with Greg Orman coming up in the next hour on why the Democrats are trying to challenge this. But the challenge of independent gubernatorial candidate Greg Orman's eligibility for the ballot filed Monday by Democrats alleged that thousands of signatures should be disallowed after officials in 7 counties missed a deadline for certifying petition names for the Secretary of State. Let me get this straight. Greg Orman turns in the petition with all the signatures in the counties. The county officials, meaning the government, misses the deadline on counting and verifying the petition and the signatures, so therefore the Democrats want them removed because the government wasn't efficient enough to do their job by the deadline they needed to have, even though Greg Orman turned in his petition. Does that make any sense to you? I'm not quite sure how that makes sense. Greg Orman, you shouldn't be on the ballot because thousands of those signatures were not verified in the deadline that we actually had. Even though it wasn't your fault and the government didn't do their job, you missed it. You need to remove those. Oh, sorry, you can't be on the ballot. It needs to be a head-to-head competition between Laura Kelly and Chris Kobach. Tell me how that makes any sense. This is showing the desperation for the Democrats just a little bit. This is them realizing they're not going to win the governor's race just a little bit. Now, of course, they're not going to say that. They're not going to openly come out and say, yeah, we're a little desperate right now because Greg Orman may steal this under our, steal the rug under our feet. But they are going to come out and they're going to try the dirty politics as they've tried to do. They put a Ron M. Estes on the ballot for the 4th congressional seat to try and confuse voters about which one was Ron Estes for the primary. Now they're trying to remove Greg Orman off the ballot. Their desperation is showing just a bit because they're on the losing end while you have a national movement trying to push this blue wave while we're trying to change the state. I mean, imagine this. We've gone, 60, 70, 80 years of Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat with the governorship back and forth every 8 years. It just switches. The pendulum swings back and forth. Now we have a blue wave movement happening nationwide to where the Democrats feel that they have some momentum. Then we have some open seats here in Kansas where potentially Democrats could do favorably very well. Not to mention we're coming off a governor where they think was the most unpopular governor in the state's history, where they despised him, where they called him a buffoon, where they laughed at him, where they attacked him nonstop with Governor Brownback over and over and over and over again. And if they lose the governor's race again with the blue momentum nationwide that they feel that they have, after coming off a very unpopular governor of the Republican side like Governor Brownback that they say was very unpopular, and they still end up losing, do you realize how foolish they will look? Do you realize how bad that will look for the Democrat Party when they lose, when it's supposed to be their turn to take over the pendulum for the governorship after a very unpopular governor, after their movement that they thought was very well with more moderate Republicans coming in last election and repealing the tax cuts and doing retroactive tax increases and spending more money at the level and really giddy and excited the fact that the Supreme Court said that we need more money in the educational finance thing, which has been their puppy for a long time. They feel like they have the momentum, and if they lose, imagine how foolish that they're going to look. And it will really expose how damaged the Democratic Party in the state of Kansas actually is. They don't want to admit that. So what are they doing? They're trying to find a way to ensure their victory by removing the independent candidate. I say we need to fight this. We need to keep him on the ballot. I don't see him going anywhere off the ballot because it's not his fault that elected officials in counties did not verify the petition signatures in enough time by the deadline when he turned in his time. He did it. He got the signatures. He turned them in. The government officials delay, and then they say, nope, got to remove them. And then, you're going to be short, not going to be on the ballot. Let them keep chasing their tail. Let them keep chasing themselves, because the farther that they go down this road trying to fight Greg Orman, the less attention they're paying to Chris Kobach, the less attention they're paying on the campaign trail to the actual issues, the less attention they're actually focusing on election time, because they're too busy trying to rig the election to the way that's going to benefit them in the long run. 316-721-8255. Let's take some phone calls here as you are lining up, wanting to jump on line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, doing good. I got two legit questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, Greg Orman, and I really don't know this, and I should. I'm ashamed to say I don't. What's his score from the NRA? The scorecard?
That's a really good question. I don't know his score from the NRA as well. I know that Obviously, Laura Kelly has an F, Chris Kobach has an A, and is endorsed in the general election by the NRA. I don't know what Greg Orman's rating would be. I don't know that he necessarily has one since he hasn't been in an elected seat, so they don't actually have a record to go off of. It's whether he actually submitted the questionnaire to the NRA for them to grade based on what he would do if he was in office. I don't know if he submitted one of those or not.
Okay, well, let me transform that question. What is your take on his view of the Second Amendment then?
Well, he hasn't talked a whole lot about it. Now, the one thing that I do know is, I don't know if you remember, about a month or two ago, we simulcast with our station out in Garden City when he announced his running mate with John Dahl out in Garden City, and the question was brought up about him on whether we should actually have armed guards or more guns in schools to be able to defend our children, and he was adamantly against having more firearms in the schools for security in that sense. So I don't know where he stands overall on the Second Amendment. I do know that when it comes to the schools, that he's not in much of a favor of actually having a whole lot of firearms in the school to protect children in case of school shootings in that sense.
Well, I'm not in favor of any public school anyways. Government indoctrination doesn't run well with me. Anyways, my second question is, where does Kobach stand on recreational marijuana in the state of Kansas?
That's a good question. And I don't know how much he's talked about it. I think the last that I had heard that he is pro agricultural hemp, but he is not for the actual marijuana legalization in the state. But that's a good question. Next time we get him on, we will ask him about that.
Sounds good. Those are the two issues I'm voting on.
Hey, well, there you go. No, yeah, as far as I'm aware of Greg Orman, I don't know his stance on the NRA, and I appreciate the call very much. His stance with the firearms, we'll ask him about it, his platform. He says the Second Amendment, I believe. I don't know if he's gotten a rating from the NRA. We'll have to do a little research on that one. But as for marijuana, Chris Kobach, his platform, again, this is speculation here because he hasn't talked a whole lot about it, but pro-agricultural hemp, not for marijuana in the state of Kansas. Good questions, though. Appreciate it very much. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. You were talking about little houses. Okay. Those houses are legal houses. Those $100,000 houses are legal houses. Mm-hmm. They're going to be on a legal lot. Mm-hmm. They're going to be brand new. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Just because people have money does not mean that they can control everything around them. If they want to control what is around them, what they need to do is buy up that farmland so they can control it then.
Purchase the lot, sure. No, I get that, and you're right. I mean, it is private property, and whoever owns the private property should be able to do whatever they want to. My concern with the mini mansion is, you're right, it is going to be a brand new home. If it's a mini mansion, it's anywhere from 300 to 500 square feet. Is there potential to build upon it or at least keep the value of the home? Because it's kind of like a brand new car. When you drive it off the lot, that's about the most value that it's going to have in its lifetime. It can only go down from there. And if someone buys it, grows out of the home because they have kids and they start getting a bigger family, will they be able to resell it at the same value, or will it start losing money?
Well, what's going to happen is the fact that someone's going to buy that house and resell it. Then another person is going to tack on a bedroom to it, okay?
Will they be able to? Is there enough room? Because I thought they were going to put more homes kind of in tight quarters around there in the lot, so therefore they wouldn't have
It is
space.
going to be it's on a legal lot, a legal city lot, and you can build a full-size house on a legal city lot, and those are mini houses, so they will have room to attach.
To expand.
Absolutely, and they also said that one of them could also have a garage. Now, on the flip side of that, I know for an absolute fact that a person that lives out there happens to own a rental home in my neighborhood that he does not take care of. And we've contacted him about that. And his response to us, and he lives out there, is the fact that he doesn't control who applies for a rental house. And as long as they pay the rent, that's all he cares about. So how can this guy out there complain about that when he's doing that to us? And there are other people out there that have rental homes that more than likely don't keep up their rental homes.
Mm,
So
sure.
what's good for them, it should be good for us.
Well, that's a really great question, Eddie. I appreciate it very much. It's something to definitely think about, and I think the debate's going to be ongoing for those mini mansions and those little homes. To the value of them, to the quality of them, whether it's going to be maintained. They do say there's going to be HOAs in those areas, which kind of deters me. But some people may actually enjoy the HOA to kind of keep it up to a certain level. We'll see. Maybe more details will come out on whether it's going to be beneficial or not. Appreciate the call very much. Got some more on the line. Stay here. We got to take a break real quick. 26 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
So I just looked on the NRA website for the NRA endorsements for the Kansas general election, and nothing's come up yet. They only had their list of primary endorsements and primary numbers for the grades for NRA endorsements and the letter grade that they had, A, B, or C, D, or F, based on their stance. So it's nothing yet for Greg Orman when it comes to the NRA's stance. So we'll get more information as soon as those numbers are released for the general election. As soon as I know, then you will know. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Stay here. This is The Voice of Reason.
Waking up the right way.
I look forward to listening to you every morning when I get ready for work.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into The Voice of Reason. We love everybody waking up with us here, waking you up the right way. You can interpret that however you'd like to do so. Advancing conservatism on a daily basis. So conservative that we're semi-confident about our gender identification here on the show. Welcome at 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We got some calls on the line. Hang tight with us here for just a minute. It is that time we do every single Wednesday. Looking forward to chatting with Sedgwick County Commissioner Mr. Jim Howell on the line with us. Jim, how are you, my friend?
Andy, I'm doing really well. Glad to get last week over with.
Boy, I tell you what, yeah, you guys had a heck of a process, not only with Election Day, but then with the canvassing period afterwards there. We talked a little bit about that last week, but it's all said and done. How do you guys feel now that the election is officially over, and now we can start looking towards the general election?
Well, I've got a couple of different answers to that question, but I'll tell you, it's a pretty daunting task to get an election complete, and having that one in the can it does feel pretty good. The election workers and election staff, I think they can breathe a sigh of relief, but really their work begins immediately on the next election. So there really isn't much of a break for anyone. For us, it's just good to get that done and out of the way. We also, by the way, I'm sure you know this, but we also had to canvass on Friday last week because of the recount for District 4 County Commission race. Mm-hmm. And so we actually canvassed twice, actually 3 days last week. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, and then again on Friday. So with that, all three of those things, of course, made the news. And then on Wednesday, we had our budget we had to pass, and we got that done. And then on Thursday, most of us went to Washington, D.C. To have a chance to interface the administration's staff on county issues. And so we did do that. So last week was just a whirlwind.
So you had a fun, busy week, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. But anyway, it was a great week. The budget did pass. There were some things about it I didn't like. That's usually the way it works. I don't feel like budgets are like a lot of some issues are very black and white, and I can Second Amendment to me is very black and white. Pro-life issues are very black and white. The budget really isn't like that. It's almost degrees of good or bad. There's always things in there I don't like. There's always things in there that I do. And it becomes, do you vote for it because of the things you like and you accept some of the things you don't like, or you vote the other way? It's one of those things where there's really not a perfect answer to that question. I don't think any commissioner loves everything in that budget.
Sure.
And the public probably feels the same way. But we do have our obligation to pass the budget.
Sure.
And so we do have to move forward at some point. And so that budget did pass. And I appreciate our staff. They did a tremendous job. It takes about 6 months to put together a budget and to go through that entire process. And so to see that big, thick book laying there and all that detail, that represents a tremendous amount of work to get that done. And I think the county does a really good job on this overall. And the public, I hope they appreciate the fact that they've got a lot of opportunities to weigh in. during the process, and we engage them many, many different ways. And there are some changes that were made because engaging the business community as well as the public, and some things got tweaked up or down and right and left. And so, at the end of the day, we got it done, and I'm glad to get that done. And as a consequence, Andy, we don't normally have a meeting the week after we pass a budget. And as I've already told you in the past, we don't normally have a meeting on the last Wednesday of the month. That was a money-saving strategy that was employed years and years ago.
Sure.
And we try to do that. Now, every once in a while, we still have to meet on the last Wednesday of the month because business just really means that we have to. But we're going to try to stick to that. So we have the option of a meeting next week. We don't think we're going to need it. So we're not going to meet today, and we're not going to meet next week. So our next meeting really would be the first Wednesday of September. I think it's September the 6th, if I've seen my calendar correctly. But anyway, so we've got a bit of a break here, and we're focused on basically getting ready for that meeting. We've got a lot of things going on. I look at the manager. He does a good job of communicating, and he sends us out kind of a task list once a week and shows us kind of what's going on. That list is very long. It's about 3 pages long right now, so there's a lot going on. It's just that we're not going to have a formal meeting to actually move anything forward until at least 2 weeks from today. So
the overall,
anyway,
the finished budget, now that you guys did pass that, I mean, overall, did we, how much did we increase the budget compared to last year? I know we talked to the city council and they passed theirs as well. Theirs went up by about 1.5% to 2% when it comes to anticipated revenue that they're going to be using. And they thought that they'd see growth in the city area. What are we looking like for the county? Are we anticipating growth? Are we seeing an increase in the budget? Did we invest in some areas a little bit more so than others than we did before?
Well, we could have grown the budget more under the tax lid. We chose not to do that. Our budget overall, adding the fire district and the county government budgets together, it was just a touch under $440 million. And that represents a growth of about $12 million over last year's budget. There have been some things we haven't funded for years that did get their way back into this budget because we have the revenue. But having said that, this is still a conservative budget. Most of the extra money went to public safety and into salary for employees that had less than reasonable raises for a number of years. They're still doing a kind of a catch up on some of their salaries. We do have a problem if we don't pay these folks reasonably. Then our attrition is higher, and because people have better deals elsewhere, and then we have to go through the process of recruiting and attracting and finding and interviewing and then hiring and then training people to replace them. It's very expensive. The overhead to replace staff is very high. So if you can spend a couple of percent on their salary to retain that staff and not have to go through the process of replacing that staff, it is a conservative Republican principle, and I think that actually shows good management of our county dollars. We're trying to minimize wasted dollars, and so retaining those staff is very, very important. And so they deserved a raise, and we gave them a pretty good raise this year. That pay pool was way up. I don't know what the city did, but ours was altogether about 4%. And we also added in some money for some one-time bonus money that can be used to reward those that are basically doing extremely well. Of course, that's not recurring money altogether. But altogether, we put in about $6.5 million this year out of our $12 million growth goes to employee salary enhancements. We also have, of course, increases in insurance costs. But we also did most of it. I mentioned a minute ago, most of the things we touched in terms of choices in our budget dealt with public safety. We're adding call takers to our 911. We're going to construct a brand new fire station out by Andale. We replaced added 6 firefighters to our fire district. That fills all of the positions now are filled in terms of they're all filled. They're all budgeted and forecast. So all the fire positions will be filled, and that's a tremendous. We've not been there for a long time. Those positions were cut about 7 years ago, and they've been empty all those years. And now we decided to go ahead and fill those 6 positions. And so you start looking at this. Really, I'd say the focus was on infrastructure, public safety, and retaining our staff, and of course our rate costs, things like insurance. That was primarily where that growth went, but it was necessary. So I think this is, my opinion, a very conservative budget. Although it may sound like a lot of money to go up $12 million, But bear in mind, we could have gone up a lot more under the tax code. We chose not to do that. And to me, that just shows tremendous leadership on part of the county.
Sure. No, absolutely. Well, I'm glad that we didn't go to the extreme and try and go and cap it as much as we could, because that always leads to devastation. So we're on the right track there. One of the issues that came up, and we've discussed it a little bit on the show today, we talked about it yesterday with the city council. I believe that you made a comment on it for the newspaper as well, but these mini mansions that are coming up in the Wichita area, and the discussion of whether we should be investing in this, whether this should be allowed. I know that some of the neighbors in the area weren't too terribly happy about these. But what's your take on this whole mini mansion? Should they be going there? Is it a good idea to invest in something like this that's about $75,000 to $100,000 homes like this, these small little 300 to 500 square feet homes? I mean, what's your take on all of this?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is that our primary role on this particular project has to do with the road itself, because that is a county road.
Sure.
And there's city property on both sides of that road. So that's an item of discussion amongst my colleagues and myself, and probably our folks across the street. We're going to have to talk about that road. And there's a lot of traffic on that road, especially in the morning and the evening when Southeast High School and Christian College School are getting started, and of course when they let out. So the traffic there, most of the frustration actually has two peak times during the daytime, but they are so bad that really it needs to be really thought through carefully by the county commissioners. And so I'm looking at that, trying to find out if there's anything I can do to help ease that pain a little bit, or if I can advocate for something that makes sense to me to help solve that problem. But really, the issue of the annexation on the west side of 143rd Street that allowed this to go forward really here's the reality. The county commission does not have a vote in this process, because in Kansas law, unilateral annexation simply means when the property owner petitions the city to be annexed and it's contiguous with the city, in other words, it's touching the city, then the only vote that has to be made is the city council makes a vote to annex. There has to be a reason for them to vote no, and I understand I'm not a zoning expert or an annexation expert, but the legal folks have spoken up, at least on the city side. City staff has spoken very clearly, as well as our planning department has spoken very clearly, that says that if there's not a legal reason why you can vote no, then you really have to vote yes. There is a natural vote that has to happen, and you'd think that these officials could vote yes or no, based on what do you want to do. Right. But it's not that simple. They have to actually have a legal reason to vote no, and the problem is that wasn't presented. It gets me back to the point that I think our zoning laws need to be updated. I understand the problem. We've got literally $1 million homes on the east side of the street, and they're going to have, in reality, $75,000 homes on the west side of the street. These are both single-family dwellings, and our laws simply say if it's a single-family dwelling, we don't regulate the size. We don't regulate the value that has to go there. As long as it's a single-family zoned lot, then a single-family dwelling can be constructed, regardless of the size or the price. But I think people would generally recognize that mobile homes and RV parks and multifamily dwellings are different than single-family. We do regulate those, and had that been the plan, there would have been a notification that would have gone out to the community. There would have been a hearing. Several hearings, actually, one at the Planning Commission, possibly one at the District Advisory Board, and then eventually, potentially, one at the City Council. But because this was a single family zoning, which would require a larger lot, and the only change was it goes from a larger lot, a 20,000 square foot lot, to a 5,000 square foot lot. And by the way, these are actually going to be 4,000 square foot lots, because they can transfer 1,000 of their square feet to a community green space. So 4,000 square foot lot, this is actually a little bit smaller than a normal lot. So I heard a previous caller saying these are normal sized lots. Actually, they're not. They're a little bit smaller. That's called a platting process. And platting is generally, it's basically the only person that votes on that is the Planning Commission. And in this case, when it gets annexed, the SF20 to SF5 change is considered an automatic change that is allowed to happen. And that's what the property owner wanted, and that's what did happen. Because of that, there was no notification, there was no hearing, and people feel like they didn't have a voice in the process. And that's why they're upset. So one thing I'd like to point out, I think it's obvious, but let's just say it: the property rights is a two-way street. We want to do what we want to do on our property, and have no one tell us what we can and cannot do. And I understand that point. That's a great principle. But on the other hand, would you want to have someone right next door to you doing things that you thought would be unheard of? I mean, would you want to have a mobile home park right next to your house? Well, a lot of people would say, I really don't want that there. I want it, where we put mobile home parks in different places around town. Those are typically zoned. I mean, they're zoned to go in certain places.
Sure.
Well, these folks in these very large and luxurious homes are looking across the street saying, to them, it's like a mobile home park. And it's not. These are micro mansions. They're going to be very luxury, small homes. And under the law, really, the law, all it says right now is these are single-family dwellings. We recognize the fact that they're just small houses.
And legally, they have a right to do so.
They have a right to do so. So I guess my point would be is this, that both sides ought to have a right to do what they want to do. But we do have zoning laws that puts certain types of housing in different types of places around town, and we just haven't caught up with the tiny home movement. We don't have the zoning class for tiny homes, and that's the problem. So based on our current laws, our current annexation laws, our current zoning laws, these folks are doing exactly what they have a right to do under the law. And as much as we may not like it, it is legal to do it this way. Does it really make sense? I see both sides of that too. They are across the street from each other. They're not right next door to each other, but they are close. And whether this really impacts property values, only time will tell. I don't know if there's going to be an HOA in the micromansion development. I hope there is one, but I don't like HOAs for me. But in this case, it might make sense to make sure there's a certain kind of landscaping and a certain appearance that's maintained over time. That might help this a little bit. These are considered luxury homes. They have granite. They've got wood floors and things like that. As long as that's maintained long term, that might alleviate some of the concerns. But only time will tell. I mean, some of the concerns are that people are making some they have some concerns that this is going to dilapidate quickly. It's going to turn into rental property or even Section 8 housing. I've heard that before, and that, with that in mind, being right next door to this other neighborhood, to them this is a very, very concerning to their property values and the type of neighbors that they might have. They just don't want to see that right across the street. So I see both sides. The reality is I don't have a vote.
Sure.
And,
and what it sounds like, what it sounds like with what you mentioned with the zoning laws is that this is a growing pains issue for the city, is that we haven't had this issue come up before. These mini homes we haven't really thought about or never had them really in our city or in our county or in the area. So now that we're seeing the addressing issue of, we have the right to, and I agree with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. We have the right as a private property owner to do what we want to with our property, and I'll never deter away from that. And if the individual wants to put these on their property, then they have the right to do so. Also, someone that lives next to it be like, wait a second, you're going to be affecting the potential property value of my home. And that's a concern as well. So maybe this is, as you mentioned, comes down to really should we maybe evolve a little bit when it comes to our zoning laws to have an effect on this one way or another. It's going to be an interesting conversation as we go along with this one. But we're out of time, my friend. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. Okay. Always a fun time, as you mentioned. No meeting today. No meeting next week, potentially, at least right now. As of right now, we don't have one. But you guys still sound like you're staying pretty busy. We are crazy busy, and and it's not too far till the next election, so things are going to get even more interesting as we go forward. But thank you again, Andy. Appreciate the time to be on the air today. Exactly. I always love it. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell right there. Appreciate it very much. We'll get him back on the show again next Wednesday. Let's take a break. We'll wrap up hour number 2 when we come back in hour number 3. Greg Orman, independent candidate for the governor's race right here on The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Just a few minutes at the top of the hour here. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Thanks again, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, joining the program as he always does on a Wednesday. Really appreciate that. Laura on Facebook, if I want to build a smaller home in an upscale area so I can afford it, whose business is that? That's a great point. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to is the private property. You know what? Even the zoning says you can do it, and you have the money to be able to do that. You know what? All the power to you. No one can tell you otherwise. They may not like it, but, too bad, so sad sort of thing. My concern is the value if it sustains a certain value, and if we're going to be losing money by building a house, you buy it at $100,000, 2-3 years later. If you're not able to expand, if it is a little bit smaller property, and then you don't have the way to be able to expand it a little bit or keep it maintained, just the wear and tear, it goes down a little bit, and then it's going to be hard to sell it or to rent it, and then the value does begin to go down, and that is a concern in that sense. But when it comes down to private property, I'm one that doesn't like to affect private property in any way, shape, or form. So it's such a tricky issue, isn't it? Appreciate that comment very much. Got some calls on the line. Stay there. When we come back, we got to take a top of the hour break. Greg Orman, independent candidate, going to be joining us for the governor's race. We'll talk about his platform. We'll talk about the latest news as he's getting a lot of attention in the media as of right now. Democrats absolutely panicky about him being on the ballot, which is kind of funny. So they don't like anything that could potentially affect their easy, nice little golden pathway to victory. So we'll see how that one turns out. But Greg Orman will be joining us here when we come back. Lots to get to, your phone calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason right here on KQAM. Stay tuned.
It's time for Reason.
They're delusional. The blinders are on. I don't know if it's the higher education. I don't know whether it's the Common Core education. I don't know whether it's just been brainwashing for years and years and years. But when you lay out blatant facts to them, they refuse to listen. They refuse to acknowledge. There's so much opportunity to where if we just at least had a discussion and they opened their ears for a slight minute, then maybe they'd have a different perspective.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. On the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning, welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. It is still a day of blurriness a little bit as we ride the high from Dayquil. But hey, you know what? I think it's going pretty well. What do you think? Greg Orman, independent candidate for governor, has not called in yet. We'll get him on the show here soon, hopefully maybe at the bottom of the hour or something, but not joining the program as of yet. So it is open line to you at 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join into the program. Talking about these elections, I think it's going to get down to the nitty-gritty depending on the campaign styles. I also am curious. Now I'm kind of interested to see how maybe the national story, of course, with Paul Manafort and with Cohen and with all these indictments going through and now trying to go after Trump, is this going to affect maybe the midterms, not just on the national front, but at the statewide levels of individuals who are embracing President Donald Trump, like a Chris Kobach, like some of the state legislators. I mean, as you know, even we talked to a Sedgwick County Commissioner, Richard Ranzaw, during the primary race, and one of the questions that many of the constituents at that time had was, what's your stance on X, Y, and Z? And oh, by the way, do you support President Donald Trump? Now, I don't think that any of the Trump supporters would be deterred by this whole Paul Manafort thing, and you can get into that if you want to. I'm not necessarily too concerned about it. I don't really care one way or another, but do you think that this, for any Trump supporter, is this going to deter any support from him, and will that trickle down into the elections going into the midterm for statewide and national races across the country? It's kind of an interesting concept. As many, really, the Republican Party brand has been now, are we for Trump or are we fighting against Trump? Now, the party shouldn't be about one man. It shouldn't be about one person. It should be about an ideology. But Trump right now is just, let's get stuff done. And whether we want to partner up and piggyback on that or whether we want to try and fight it is really what it's come down to. So kind of an interesting concept. And this election may, even for the governor's race in Kansas, may have an effect one way or another, or may be affected by this whole national issue with President Donald Trump. Phones are lighting up, so let's go right to them. 316-721-8255, line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing great, and perfectly, you are too.
Absolutely. With the medication, I am fantastic.
Even though you've got a cold.
With the medication, I am fantastic for the time being.
All right. Well, I'm not the best at math, but you were saying that these houses are 500 square feet.
Yeah, anywhere between 300 to 600 square feet, really.
And they're charging about $75,000 and up.
Correct.
So that's approximately $150 per square foot. Is that even? I mean, is that what's going on?
For that kind of breakdown, it would be something like that. Now, I don't know what the average square foot price is for Wichita for newer homes versus used homes versus kind of fixer-upper homes. I want to say, I'm trying to think about mine, for example. Mine would be, I don't even know how big my house is. I want to say maybe 1,300 square feet-ish, and we got ours for about $80,000, maybe just a little under that. And it was a fixer-upper, a little bit older. It was built in the mid-50s. I mean, it needed some definite work. It was in a decent community, that sort of thing. So, depending on where you're at.
It might have been made with a lot better quality materials than what they're making today.
Well, and maybe. I mean, mine's a brick home, so obviously it's not going to go anywhere for a while, and it seems to be in relatively good structural shape as of right now. So it really depends on the area that you're in, the neighborhood that you're in, and then the value of that. Again, I mean, if these are $7,500, $100,000 homes, that's awesome. And again, I love the idea of having homes within that price range because they are very difficult to find, and some people either don't want a fixer-upper or they don't want to or don't know how to do a fixer-upper and have the know-how to be able to fix up homes, so they want something move-in ready within that price range, which is very, very difficult to get.
I would think as a starter house, that's awfully high. $75,000 for a starter house at $150 per square foot, and it's only it would be approximately like 20 foot by 25 feet.
Sure.
That's smaller than a double wide.
Well, I
mean, good grief.
And the only response I would have to that is that, I mean, if that's what the market sets for it, because there's such a demand for it, if there's a lot of people looking for that price range that are move-in ready, that are newer homes, that do look nice, that are a little bit smaller, then I guess if the manufacturers build a whole bunch of these and then they don't sell, they'll lower the prices on them. But right now, I would guess that's probably within the proper price range, just for the fact that there's a demand for it. And I'm sure a lot of people are looking for smaller homes in that price range that they can enjoy. And if they can sell them for that much, then they're going to sell them for that price. My only concern, as I've said, is, being in those communities and around other communities, that if they don't sell for that much, or you buy it and you end up growing out of it, and later on there's not as much of a demand, then will you be able to sell it for that same amount? Will it be able to retain its value at that price range, or will it be sinking pretty quickly? And if it sinks really fast, then that could be potentially dangerous for that community.
It sounds to me like a 20 foot by 25 foot house being sold, or charging somebody $75,000 is way unfair.
Well, I mean, again, it's all up to the market to decide on what the price range is going to be for that. Helen, I appreciate it. I mean, it's a good point. That might be a little expensive. At the same time, if there's a lot of people looking for move-in ready homes at $75,000 to $100,000, then the market will set it at that price. I mean, that's how the economy works. If there's a lot of people looking for that and there's going to be a small amount of them, then you're right, the price is going to go up for that. How long will that be able to be maintained, though? That's really the big question. 316-721-82. But again, it comes down to, at the end of the day, we can talk about it and bicker about it all we want. At the end of the day, it's private property. They choose to do it. There's no zoning laws that say they can't do it. Then all the power to them. They're going to. I guess it's going to be kind of the social experiment to see what it's going to look like at the end of the day. Appreciate the call very much. So let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, big guy. Sean here.
Sean, what's going on, sir?
Hey, you got a cold?
I have a terrible cold. It is driving me nuts.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I put on a surgical mask to talk to you, so I don't catch your germs over the phone.
That is true. That is true. It's, anybody listening on their airwaves, stay tuned. You might need to put in earplugs just for the fact that you might get a cold. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
When we talked about this, I think yesterday, and I said this has been done before, I meant something similar. What I'm talking about is the Plainview area.
Okay.
That was built as temporary housing during World War II because there was a housing shortage for all of the people working in industry around here, for the war, aircraft industry and associated businesses that supported. So, and those homes those are tiny homes, and they were built as temporary housing, and they still stand today. And it's been nothing but a problem area for years and years. Crime, gang activity, and whatnot.
Sure.
So, secondly, and I see something like that in the making here. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow if the project even gets off the ground, because a lawsuit could always stop it. But if you're going to, it seemed like to me that when Obama was president, this idea was born in his administration of building housing areas for low-income people right up next to wealthy neighborhoods. I'm pretty sure I heard about this, not too many, just a few years ago.
Well, sure, you're right. I mean, you're right. President Obama did try and do some housing and urban development initiatives to where he was trying to put some lower housing areas into suburb areas or higher valued income areas in order to try and change some of the mentality in that sense. And we were very critical of that at the time. But I don't think this is really kind of the same scenario. It could be by default, just as what's happening a little bit. But that was kind to force individuals to go into certain areas when they weren't necessarily wanting to based on government mandate. This is just a private property owner that says, I want to build some mini homes on here and then be able to sell them because I own that property and I have the right to do so. And if there's a demand for those types of homes, then who are we to say no? Because I'm all for private property and you being able to do whatever you want to on there. Would that cause a little bit of a potential issue if the value of the homes did go down and a certain community moved into there to where they didn't upkeep it very well and crime did start to go around while next door to them there were some a little bit more expensive and upper income areas? Then yeah, that could cause an issue, and hopefully that's not the case, which is why I think they're trying to put in some safeguards with like the HOA, the homeowners association, to try and make sure that it's done at a proper level. My big question is that no matter how much you do that, will it be able to maintain the value of the home? And if it is, then all the power to them. That's cool. If not, then that could potentially be concerning not only for the neighbors, but for the individuals living there themselves, that they're going to be losing money on the home that they purchased as a brand new deal there. That's $75,000, $100,000. And then just by the cost of it, it's going to start going down. I don't know. I mean, that's a question that I think realtors and experts in the area actually need to look at. But that would be my biggest concern is, can it maintain its value to keep the quality of those housing areas up?
Well, I worked a lot of years in drywall construction myself, and I'd really like to see a blueprint of schematic, entire design, like a computer-generated image of what this development is going to look like, what the houses are going to look like. It sounds to me 400 or 500 square foot house in terms of floor space sounds like a dinky apartment to me. It makes me think of these homes in Plainview, and sure. I haven't been in one of those homes since the early 90s when I worked on a remodel. It's actually an oak lawn, the same kind of house, but
sure.
Well, and I don't know
as I mentioned yesterday, apartment complexes are going up in Denver that are kind of the same space. I mean, 350 square feet for an apartment, and they actually were building them as I was leaving, and it looked like a big round building, and it was a skyscraper kind of deal. And they were because there were so many people moving to the state and to the city that they needed more housing space, so they built these apartments, these mini apartments that were 350 square feet, where it was one giant room with everything there, from the living room to the kitchen to the bathroom and everything, just kind of a giant room. And they were selling for close to $1,200 a month for rent for these 350 square foot homes. If we're in that desperate of a shape, then we need to look at other ways in order to get more people here. I don't see as many people flooding the Wichita area to try and move here, so maybe this is the step down to try and say, you know what, we need this. There's a demand in the market for this size and this price range home. I don't know. I don't know what the idea is of thinking, hey, let's try and expand it this way, but let's do it a little bit different way than just building a normal 1,000 square foot sized home.
Is there a big demand for housing downtown? Because they just built a brand new apartment complex, plus they converted the old Colorado Derby building into apartments. So I'm just wondering, if there's not a housing shortage in Wichita and we're building all these apartment complexes, we're going to wind up being overbuilt and having too much housing and not enough people to fill them. I don't know. I see a problem growing here, and
sure. It's that happy medium we got to find.
At the very least, an extremely wealthy real estate mogul like myself could go in there, and as soon as these houses are built, say, wow, this is a great investment opportunity, and buy up these houses and rent them out. I mean,
sure.
Gee whiz, man.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one to see. Sean, I appreciate it very much. So, I mean, you're right. It's going to be fun to watch, fun to observe, and it looks like it's going to happen. There's no legality or legal reason why we can't or why we shouldn't do it. So it sounds like it's going to happen. When or how quickly it actually might happen, I don't know. We'll have to see, but time will tell. Time will tell. Appreciate it very much. Let's sneak in another phone call before a break here, shall we? Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Good morning, Jim. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I got 2 real quick comments.
Okay.
On the housing deal, the cost of a good quality toilet, refrigerator, sink, furnace, and stuff is fixed, whether the house is 300 square feet or 15,000.
Sure.
If the quality is in there, in those utilities and appliances and stuff, the house will go up in value. If they use cheap junk, it'll go down just like a trailer. My comment I actually wanted to make before I called in, gun control. Let's make sure nobody who's under 21 years of age has a gun. That attitude is what killed Molly Tibbetts.
Well, that's a really
She'd be
great
alive
point.
if she had a gun instead of a cell phone.
Sure, yeah. Or, the ways the progressives say that you should protect yourself as a woman, which is just run away and try and defecate on yourself, so that way you turn off anyone who wants to harm you. And, just not use a firearm because that's really bad for you to protect yourself. Appreciate it very much, Jim. Got to take a break, 22 minutes. Oh, before we do it, we haven't done it yet today. It's that time.
Call now at 721-8255. Right here on KQAM.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It is that time. It's fall time. Next month is the Kansas State Fair, September 16th. It's a Sunday, 3 p.m. It is the ultimate, the awesome, like one of the best features of the entire state fair. It is the truck and tractor pulls at the Kansas State Fair from the Outlaws, brought to you by the Mid-America Network. We always love partnering up with the Kansas State Fair on the Outlaw truck and tractor pulls. Again, Sunday, September 16th, 3 p.m. I got a pair of tickets for you right now. Let's do caller number 2. We'll get caller number 2 on here to get a pair of tickets to that event on Sunday, September 16th, the Outlaw Truck and Tractor Pulls here on KQAM.
The voice of reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Congratulations to Carlos winning the truck and tractor pull tickets today. Oh, yeah. Let me just tell you right now, Redneck Heaven. That's what I'm talking about. Redneck Heaven. Go to the Kansas State Fair. Go see the truck and tractor pulls. It is the greatest spectacle at the Kansas State Fair. One of many. Brought to you by the Mid-America Network. We love partnering with those guys for. We'll have more, by the way. We're going to be doing some all the rest of this week and all of next week as well. Plus, next week we do have some tickets to some of the concerts at the Kansas State Fair. Stay tuned in for that as well. Let's sneak in a phone call here before the bottom of the hour break. We are going to try and get Greg Orman on at the bottom of the hour, see if he can jump on then, since he was not able to call at the top of the hour. Line number 1, good morning. What's your name?
This is Lois.
Hey, good morning, Lois. How are you?
I'm good, Andy. How are you?
Hey, we're living the dream every day.
I got a couple of quick comments. First, on the tiny homes, I have a lot of friends that live over in that area, and yeah, they are definitely afraid of property valuations going down.
Sure.
And number two, I live in Andover, and over here, average price is probably about $90 a square foot. And if you take those tiny homes, 100,000, just say 100,000, a 600 square foot, that's $167 a square foot. They would be gouging these low-income people.
Sure. No, you're right. I mean, if it's that pricey, I mean, if the market demands that, then I guess the market demands that, and there's nothing we can do about it if it's going to sell for that much or for that little of a home. But again, that's our big concern is how long can you sustain that? Because if you are gouging them, then eventually that bubble's going to burst, and then it's not going to be worth that, and then the property value will go down. I mean, we're already kind of setting it up for failure, aren't we?
Exactly. Second thing I wanted to bring up is I sure hope we hurry and drain this swamp, especially in the DOJ. And I think you probably heard the story about Duncan Hunter, congressman.
Sure.
He's a good conservative out of California. He and his wife getting indicted.
He is. I tell you what. Hold on the line real quick here. We got to take a bottom of the hour break. We'll finish that thought when we come back. But appreciate it. Lois on the line with us. Don't go anywhere. We got some other calls on the line. We'll get you as soon as we come back. This is the Voice of Reason here.
Haven't let your light shine down.
Patriotism is alive and well. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, the most patriotic show on radio, on TV, no matter where you may be. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the program today, 36 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. I'm really loving the conversation on this tiny home issue. Some in support of, some not in support of, and we're really seeing, at least the response that I'm getting from on air and from social media, right about 50-50 on this. Just got an email we'll read here in just a second as well. But Lois still on the line with us, and your comment regarding like Duncan Hunter, which he of course getting indicted. Then we had Mueller, and we had of course everything going on with the Trump administration. But these conservatives that are being indicted for tax evasion or tax fraud or everything else that's going on right now, kind of damaging to the party right now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I mean, I agree that if they've done something wrong, they need charged. But let's get the Democrats, too. Maxine Waters, who paid her daughter $700,000 to send out envelopes. Charlie Rangel up in New York. I mean, the list goes on and on of the corrupt Democrats. But if the Republicans are corrupt, too, that's why the swamp needs drained.
That's a great point. I mean, the Democrats have done just as much. They're all upset about the fact that we paid off, that apparently Donald Trump used his campaign manager to pay off the different women for the extramarital affairs. And that's apparently a really big deal when that happened to Bill Clinton on a weekly basis, and yet they didn't say a thing.
Right. I'm just tired of the double standards and all of the trash that's going on. And again, the Justice Department and FBI and everything, all of those corruption, that all needs to get cleaned out.
Do you think that's going to hurt President Trump or some of the Republicans in the midterm election?
I don't think so, because more and more people are waking up and seeing it and seeing that all the corruption at the top levels. And I mean, a lot of them, we are slowly but surely getting rid of all of them. And I think more and more is coming. So I feel confident in that. But
sure,
still, it takes time. And again, I think it takes a lot of time to make sure that they are getting their ducks in a row.
You know, the deep state, the corruption, the shenanigans that have been going on for years is going to take a long time to clean up. And as you said, it's on both sides of the aisle. And if we take some hits on it as well, as long as we come clean and say, yeah, you know what, we're wiping our hands of these individuals with the problems that they've created or the problems that they've done personally, they need to be punished just as much, but it needs to be across the board. Then we have a potential to come out in the right on this one. It kind of reminds me of, do you ever watch the show 24? You remember that?
No, I've never seen it.
Okay, that's the greatest show in the world. But it reminds me of actually the president at the time where they said that there was a lot of scandal going on with his administration. And then, of course, there was the terrorist attack on him when he was in one of the hotels, and they didn't know whether to release it that he was okay or not because the assassin still had collateral the guy and said that they were going to threaten to kill his family and all this other stuff. But he came clean because even though that with all the scandals going on, that as long as you told the truth in the end of it, the voters will trust you and will forgive you for whatever may have gone on. If Donald Trump comes out of this and says, look, yeah, we paid off somebody because, they didn't need to come out about extramarital affairs, but other than that, tax evasion and this and that and the other. And oh, by the way, there's still no issues about Russian collusion in any of this. And he comes clean with all of this and tells the voters, you and I, the constituents, we're going to believe him because the Trump supporters know what he's doing, knows that this stuff is just the sidetracking issues to distract us when we're on the brink of doing something really, really great. And if we stick to that, I think Republicans can still come out pretty favorably in this.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
See, there we are. Lois, I appreciate the call very much, so appreciate it. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Yeah, good morning. This is Bruce.
Hey, good morning, Bruce. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing all right. Hey,
good.
Wanted to talk to you about the small housing thing a little bit.
Sure.
I'm a believer in doing what you want with your own property and that kind of thing, but you also want to not harm other people. And it sounds like somebody's trying to make those houses worth more by putting them next to a nice neighborhood. And intentionally, which is, that's just part of your marketing plan, I guess.
Right.
But on a side note, a few years ago, I looked at online at a bunch of different designs for using cargo containers. And in Europe and South America, they've used them to build small apartment complexes and small office buildings. And they look pretty nice, the way they're set up. So I was looking at that and doing a house that way. And MABCD downtown told me I couldn't do that because they didn't allow cargo containers to be used for that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now if they're going to have that restriction in place where we can't do that even in the county on private land, then, I'm surprised they're allowing the small house thing, to happen.
Well, you're right. It really comes down to, you're right, with your own property, you have the right to do what you want to. At the same time, if it affects somebody else, then that somebody else has a little bit of a say on what's going to happen with that. And if they are concerned about the property values, then that is something that we need to have the discussion. It's kind of like with the seatbelt thing. If it only harms yourself and you're dumb enough to not wear a seatbelt, should we have a law to tell you to wear the seatbelt? I don't think we should. But when you say that, there's a law against like texting and driving, that plays into, well, if it only hurts myself, then all the power to you. But if you're not paying attention, you harm somebody else, then that person has a say on what you should be should be allowed, not allowed to do. This kind of falls into that category is that, if this goes down, and I'm not saying that it will, but if the property values go down, this would affect the neighboring communities around them. And I'm sure that they're not going to be very happy about that.
Right. It's hard enough to get property values to appraise and go up in value in this city, in this county.
Sure.
Because the whole economic situation in Kansas in this area. But that's a different, situation. Well, I guess my argument is, look, you're already forbidden building houses out of cargo containers. So why aren't you forbidding these mini houses?
Sure. And as they say,
they've already made that decision.
They say it's going to be good quality with the granite countertops, with the wood floors, that it's going to be very nice, and that they would use, and as Jim mentioned, too, with the quality of the product that they're putting into the house, is it going to be the quality of like a trailer home to where it's kind of really cheap products that you need to replace frequently, or is it going to be the high quality and stuff to where it's going to last a good long time? But again, it goes back to as well that if we're going to be selling it for $100,000 for a 400 square foot home, and the price per square foot is a lot higher than what we're seeing in the rest of the market, then that may only sustain itself for a long time, for a certain amount of time after they try and sell it because, the family's grown out of it. They go to another home. Who's to say it's not going to drop down to $50,000, $60,000 because then it's going to be comparable to per square foot with the rest of the market. And if it's going from $100,000 to $60,000, what's that going to do to the home across the street that's $250,000?
Yeah, exactly. Look at neighborhoods around Plainview and Hilltop, and Oaklawn. They struggle to have their decent property values, and you go down there, and those single-family homes in those areas are $10,000 or $12,000.
Sure.
In those neighborhoods.
It's concerning discussion to have. Bruce, I appreciate it very much. And really, that's I got an email as well, tiny home development anywhere. Andy, you take the right to low-income housing aspect out of the question. How would you feel about this subject if you were a partner in the ownership of a radio station? You had a $500,000 investment. You'd been working on this for 20-plus years, so that way you could retire comfortably with this investment. The government then decides one day to change some of the rules and reduces your antennas from takes one away out of the three that you had, reducing your coverage by 75%. Now your value of your investment's only $100,000. If you can even sell the station, would you want something like this? Because now it's all internet based, and now you're losing value of it. Is this okay? And I get it. The value of something that you've worked in the surrounding area, and then something else comes in that may devalue that. That's the look. It really comes down to right now, private property rights versus the effect of the neighboring community with the investment they have in their property. And that's really the argument that we have here, is between the two. Should we have the right to do whatever we want to with our own private property? Yes, to a degree. The surrounding community, do they have a right to be concerned about what they've sunk into their community that potentially could be affected by what's going on? Which one trumps which? And right now, legally, it sounds like that the private property is going to win, and it sounds like it may move forward in that sense. That's really the big debate. What it boils down to is, do you have the right to do whatever you want to, or should we take a look at what the surrounding area may be, or how it may be affected based on these decisions? 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Hey, Helen, real quick, what you got?
Well, going back to poor President Trump, I didn't vote for him, but I sure feel sorry for him now. His Sixth Amendment right is not being fulfilled. It says in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. Oh, like if they're impartial against him, of the state and the district wherein the crime shall have been committed. Well, what crime has he committed? And which district shall have been previously ascertained by law? I mean, that's the law of whatever law there is. That he's being accused of breaking, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be informed or confronted with the witnesses. Who is coming against him? Has he been able to see the witnesses that have been coming against him?
Well, here's the take right now, is that there's two parts of this. Number one, you're right. I mean, they got to go through the due process to be able to do the proper investigation and take it to court and everything of that sort. Right now, that's not their motive. Right now, and Helen, I appreciate it. I want to sneak some other phone calls in here. Right now, that's not their motive. Their motive right now is to release the fact that Mueller came out and Mueller came out and accused, and everybody's coming after President Trump and saying that they did this on his behalf, so therefore he's just as guilty as everybody else. That's number one, so that way it can damage him, because remember, it's election cycle. It's election season. So therefore, election season is causing everybody to just say, let's point the finger, point the finger, point the finger, point the finger. If they do this enough to be damaging enough for the elections to be turn out in favor of the Democrats, who are very upset about this, and maybe some of them Republicans and some of the anti-Trumpers and everybody else, right now it's about the damage that they're trying to cause. Who cares about the due process? Who cares about whether there's actual evidence of this? Who cares about whether the person's lied or has a history of lying? Who cares about any of that? It's about damaging President Trump going into the election to get a majority of Democrats in office in the House of Representatives. Once and if they're able to do that, which I don't see it happening, but if they're able to do that, then the next step is going to be open up the massive investigations everywhere, stall any type of progress of actually addressing serious issues, open up the investigation against President Trump, begin the process of impeachment, and pretty much make the entire country stall, because that's what our priority is going to be. That's what they're going to look at. It's not going to be about actually getting tax cuts done. It's not going to be about doing anything productive. It's not going to be about actually making the country grow or making the country actually succeed or making the country unite. It's going to be about going after Trump, stopping any type of momentum we have, impeaching President Trump, opening up tons of investigations, and then seeing what they can do from there. And if they succeed, then they're happy. If they don't succeed, then at least they stop the progress. But right now, their main number one objective is attacking President Trump and is trying to cause as much damage as possible going into the midterm election, so that way the Republicans will suffer their defeat come November. Appreciate the call, Helen. Let's go back to the lines here. Line number 4. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Pancho.
Hey, good morning, Pancho. How are you, sir?
Hey, great. You're trying to define what an independent was earlier this morning.
Sure.
There's a Republican and a Democrat in there, but an independent is actually a jilted Democrat. So,
well, now there can be independents that are very conservative and that just don't like to associate with the Republican Party, and I don't understand them, because if you want to promote conservative values, then usually they try and be part of the Republican Party or at least the Libertarian Party, to where there's somewhat of a united voice. But it's very difficult to run as that independent, and independents have the luxury of trying to attack the two-party system. But then when you actually try to delve deeper into their platform, it's sometimes and I'm not saying this is Greg Orman or anything, but sometimes it is very difficult to really understand what their platform is. And then you're right, a lot of times we do find that they're a little bit on the left or leaning side of the aisle.
Anyway, another comment. I'm working, driving around, so I haven't been able to listen to the total program. Has the issue of the annexation of the property out east for the tiny homes, to me, that's a city money grab. But it also, did that include the $1 million homes also?
That I don't know. And that's a great question. That's I know it's going to be an ongoing topic for a while. So when Brian Fry gets back in next week, we'll definitely mention that, because if there are millions of dollars floating around for surrounding homes in that area, then I think that's why there's such a big concern about a $100,000 home being introduced into that market.
I agree. And anyway, those tiny homes, when you have tornadoes like Kansas does, it reminds me of putting in a mobile home park. And I'm just wondering if they're going to be able to withstand the high winds that Kansas has. I don't know.
That's a good question, too. Who knows? Poncho, I love that. I appreciate the call very much, my friend. 316-721-8255. Again, it's going to be an ongoing discussion. We'll continue to see as new information comes out with this on what some of the details are. But again, what it boils down to is the right to the private property versus the say of some of the other surrounding areas saying, wait a second, we're a little concerned about what's going on here, and we'd like to have a bit of a say in this. 316-721-8255. We'll take a break, wrap up the show today, get your thoughts, sneak in one or two more calls before we end the show today on a Wednesday. It's a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday here on The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
I love our listeners. So got a couple messages about that last question about the $1 million homes, Cambria. Whether it's being annexed by Wichita or not. It's been annexed by Wichita, and it was done years ago, so that's already taken care of. Appreciate that information. Boy, this is going to be an ongoing one for a while. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. We'll talk with Brian Fry, Wichita City Council member, again next week. Private property versus the effects of private property nearby. Where does it end? Where does it begin? And where do you stand on that? We'd love to get your thoughts on that and more over the next couple of days. 316-721-8255. Plus, we do have some more tickets. Again, we're doing the Kansas State Fair all this week and all next week for the truck and tractor pulls. We'll give away some tickets each day, a pair of tickets. We do have tickets to some of the concerts as well. And can you believe it? Next Friday, the 31st. First off, we're already done with August, which is insanely ridiculous, because this year's going by way too fast. September right around the corner. State Fair right around the corner. High school football right around the corner. Now, I'll be hosting the statewide scoreboard show every Friday night at 10 p.m. to recap all the state high school football games that are going on. That's going to start next week. Stay tuned in for that here on KQAM and across the entire Mid-America Network. I know many of our affiliates with the Mid-America Network will be picking that up across the state, so looking forward to that program. But that's it for us today. We'll try and get Greg Orman back on the program here soon. Not sure what happened. I know he's a busy guy, but we'll try and get him back on the program and chat a little bit about his platform and what's going on in the news with his petitions and everything of that sort. Tomorrow, Bob Weeks with Wichita Liberty TV He wrote the piece that we talked about yesterday on the ranked-based voting system. We'll get his take on the election, get his discussion on the ranked-based voting system, and all of that. Looking forward to chatting with Bob Weeks tomorrow right here on The Voice of Reason, because we have more fun than any other program in the entire area. That's why we're the fastest growing talk show. That's why we're the only conservative talk show. That's why we have such great activism going on right now in the South Central Kansas area because of you. We appreciate that very much. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Everybody have a great Wednesday.